Discover the incredible transformation of Hades and Persephone. An inspiring love story revealed. Persephone stood behind the counter of her family's flower shop, surrounded by pastel pink peonies and vibrant orange marigolds, their intoxicating scent curling into the air like whispered secrets. Yet, the blooms that filled the shop couldn't alleviate the discontent swirling within her. She longed to dive deep into botany, the science of life that had always fascinated her, but instead, she poured energy into a modest shop that felt more like a shackle than a haven. Exhaustion clouded her mind. Each day, she juggled classes at the community college and the unwavering expectations of her family. Her heart ached for the future. A future where her research could mend the fractures of a warming planet. In the dim light of her room, textbooks lay sprawled across the floor, the weight of her unrealized dreams tugging at her soul. Could she really abandon her family's legacy? As she glanced at her notes, thoughts spiraled around her ambitions to explore plant life's mysteries. Paradoxical emotions twisted within her. Could passion justify leaving? The gravity of family duty loomed over her scrupulously. What if she disappointed her parents? But what if her heart gave out trying to live a life not meant for her? At the community college science fair that evening, among rows of projects and proud students, Persephone felt a flicker of hope. Yet apprehension gnawed at her. Every conversation sparked with excitement also carried the weight of dread. As she prepared her display, a deep-seated fear seized her. What if her efforts were met with indifference? The binds of expectation tightened around her chest, settling in like an anchor. Outside the bubble of flowers, joy felt like a fleeting consequence. Suddenly, a shadow loomed in her periphery. Hades Ashburn, slinking into the event, concealed from the fanfare of his family name, approached her with hesitant curiosity. Their conversation flowed easily, laughter punctuating the tension built from unspoken fears. When he offered to mentor her at his corporate lab, surprise jolted through her. It seemed surreal, an invitation to a world that felt miles away from the confines of her family's flower shop. She yearned to accept but hesitated at the brink of this impending opportunity. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. With every passing day in Hades' world, she embraced new ideas, her passion emboldened. But as exhilaration deepened, a storm of shadows emerged. Hades' past unfurled before her, revealing a tapestry of pain woven through his family's unjust practices that had left scars on the community they claimed to cherish. Persephone trembled, fisting her hands as tension crackled in her chest. How could she reconcile her feelings for him with the realities of his lineage? Love seemed a fragile blossom amidst the weeds of privilege and obligation choking the life from her ambitions. Just as they dared to plan a confrontation with their shared reality, a ringing phone cut through the fabric of their sanctuary. The voice on the line spoke truths that twisted her affection into uncertainty. Persephone stood gripped by anguish, caught between love's allure and the unwavering pull of her family's legacy. A decision loomed heavier than ever, and with a heart racing beneath layers of tension, she understood life's complexities might starve even the most vibrant bloom. The morning light filtered through the shop window, casting a soft glow on the arrangement of flowers. Persephone absent-mindedly watered the wilting daisies, their petals drooping under the weight of expectation. The aroma of fresh earth and blooms filled her senses, a stark contrast to the turmoil brewing within. With each drop that fell from the watering can, her determination fluctuated between choice and obligation. What did she really want? The desire for knowledge flickered like a flame in her core, yet her family's legacy loomed behind her like a shadow refusing to disperse. She looked up from her task, knowing that Hades was waiting for her. He had promised to introduce her to the real workings of the corporate lab, to show her the innovative research that could potentially reshape the future of botany. But she was haunted by the weight of his family history. His legacy reeked of inherited privilege and secrecy. A knot tightened in her stomach as she recalled their last conversation. words exchanged with intimacy that now felt tainted by the complexities that their families evoked. Later that day, as she arrived at Hades' lab for the first time, the sheer scale of the building took her breath away. The entrance boasted transparent glass, revealing dozens of scientists engaged in passionate debate. It was a stark contrast to the simplicity of her flower shop, yet she felt innocence rippling through her, a simple girl intoxicated by sophistication, yet tethered by her roots. Hades greeted her with a warm smile that bloomed within her as easily as the spring flowers she cherished. "I'm glad you took the leap," he said. His eyes sparkled with awareness, perhaps a recognition of the struggle she faced. They ventured deeper into the lab, navigating brightly lit corridors filled with experimental plants and the hum of machines. Each step, however, added weight to the dilemma she had carried for so long. As they reached a verdant greenhouse, an overwhelming envy mingled with admiration surged within her. These were the plants she had studied in textbooks. She longed to get lost in their intricacies, yet felt the sting of contrast, the privilege of resources that only wealth could provide. "Would you like to assist with today's experiment?" Hades asked, pulling her from her thoughts. A rare chance to show her passion surfaced, but her heart hesitated. She was terrified of failure, terrified that her lack of experience would betray her. "It's a test on plant resilience," he added, as if sensing her pause. The words caught in her throat as the shadows of her family's expectations enclosed around her. What if she couldn't measure up? What if she failed and brought shame upon herself, upon her legacy? Hades stepped closer, his voice softening. "You're capable of more than you think, Persephone. This is a step toward your dreams. Don't let the shadows drown your ambition." His unwavering belief kindled something within her. The moment infused her with a surge of bravery, coaxing her away from the confines of fear. Determined, she nodded, and they plunged into the experiment. As the hours passed, the tasks demanded her focus. A rhythm developed between them, each shared glance teeming with unspoken trust. Yet, amid their shared progress, Persephone's mind wrestled with the reality of Hades' lineage. Could she truly disentangle her burgeoning feelings from the weight of his past? By the time she left the lab, her heart felt lighter, but doubt skulked in her mind. A thought loomed: what if she detached from everything she ever knew and stepped into a life fraught with uncertainty? Now more than ever, she sensed an impending choice. Embrace the darkness or seek the light of authenticity. Both paths seemed to intertwine dangerously, questioning not just her commitment to Hades, but to the mission she had envisioned for herself. At home, sleeplessness crept in, fostering an unsettling tension. She now understood there would be a reckoning, a confrontation with not only their realities but also with herself. Decisions lay before her, the weight palpable. Tomorrow, she would confront the shadow of her past and Hades' privilege, and she realized all at once she would no longer shy away from the truth. But uncertainty still clawed at her heart. How far would she go to redefine herself, and whom would she become in the process? The next morning, Persephone stood in front of her mirror, the soft light illuminating her face, highlighting the bags under her eyes, a testament to the inner turmoil wrestling within her. Today was different. Today, she would seek clarity among uncertainty. Wrapping her fingers around the delicate bronze pendant Hades had given her, she felt the warmth of possibility radiate through her, empowering her decision to face the complexities ahead. As she entered the lab, the perpetual buzz of conversation and scientific discovery pulsed through the air like an electric current. Hades caught her gaze and stepped forward, an infectious enthusiasm emanating from his demeanor. "Ready for another round?" he asked, a hint of challenge sparkling in his eyes. His casual tone welcomed her, yet she felt the weight of his lineage pressing down again. "Ready," she replied, forcing a smile that masked her trepidation. The tasks of the day unfolded, measuring plant growth, adjusting light exposure, and documenting their findings, each step a small victory against her lingering self-doubt. Hades was attentive and patient, guiding her with insights drawn from both his education and experience. His presence ignited a flicker of confidence, nudging her toward skill she had always yearned to possess. Persephone couldn't help but observe the dynamics of the lab, how the other scientists interacted, the confidence with which they shared ideas. She marveled at their comfort within the space, but a bitter pang of envy surfaced. What gave them the right to claim their voices so easily? In contrast, she questioned her own validity. The insecurities still loomed. They were unwelcome visitors that refused to leave. Is everything all right? Hades' voice interrupted her spiraling thoughts. She hesitated, the vulnerability nearly suffocating. What if I can't measure up? What if they see me as just an outsider? Silence hung heavy like the stifling heat in the greenhouse. Hades stepped closer, an intensity filling the space between them. You won't know until you let go of that fear. Embrace the experiment, both with the plants and with yourself. His words mirrored wisdom, yet they also unsettled her. The truth often felt unbearable. As the day progressed, Persephone pushed herself beyond the limits she'd set. She immersed herself in the work, her fingers growing stained with soil, her eyes wide with discovery. An undercurrent of resilience began to weave through her, slowly displacing the self-doubt that threatened to define her. She no longer wanted to be Hades' shadow. She wanted to carve her own place within the sunlit corridors of the lab. At one point, they gathered with the group to present findings. Each participant shared data, recommendations, and projections, declaring their potential impact on global horticulture. Persephone felt the familiar knot tightening, the impulse to retreat clawing at her insides. But then she sensed Hades near her, an anchor in the storm of her uncertainty. When her turn arrived, she took a steadying breath and stepped forward, her voice quaking but resolute. In light of our research, I would like to suggest a focus on plant adaptation techniques, particularly in relation to varying climates. To her surprise, she observed nods of appreciation, enthusiastic engagement from her peers. It was a small triumph, yet it ignited a warmth that spread through her. She realized in that moment the fear she had harbored had disproportionate power over her potential. As the day waned, Persephone exchanged an impromptu glance with Hades, and for an instant, their connection resonated deeper. A bond forged through shared ambitions and raw honesty. But then she recoiled in thought. Could she truly embrace a future intertwined with him, laden with the complexities of their legacies? The unsettling truth settled like a stone in her stomach. She had declared her ambitions, but the looming specter of her past haunted her resolve. Today marked a turning point, yet she grappled with the choice that now lay very clearly before her. Tomorrow would bring the first real confrontation, a chance to voice her hopes and ambitions, to see if their paths could truly align. But as she readied herself for the inevitable reckoning, one question lingered uncomfortably. What if Hades' legacy was too heavy a burden to bear? The following morning felt like an eternity compressed into a single breath. Persephone stood at the threshold of the lab, heart racing with mingled anticipation and trepidation. The conversations within resonated, a cacophony of ideas and innovation that whispered promises of opportunity. Today was pivotal, a moment laced with potential for both personal and professional growth. As she stepped inside, Hades was already in motion, engrossed in his work. The sight of him instilled a sense of comfort and adrenaline that catalyzed her resolve. She took a moment to collect herself, allowing the familiar scent of earth and foliage to sink in, a reminder of the purpose she was striving to achieve. This wasn't about Hades or his legacy. This was about her journey, her aspirations. Big day today, Hades remarked, catching her eye. There was a playful energy in his tone. You ready to dive deeper? Absolutely, Persephone replied, embracing the mantle of determination wrapping around her shoulders. In the first hour, she absorbed every word spoken around her, keenly aware of the contributions made by her colleagues. Some shared ideas with an air of casual authority, from experimental methods to radical new concepts in horticulture. Persephone couldn't help but envy their confidence. She was aware of her budding capabilities but often felt like an outsider looking in. As the team transitioned into a brainstorming session, her internal dialogue raged. Share your thoughts, a voice urged, but another, more insidious part, whispered, what if they laugh at you? Persephone found herself trembling at the edges of that precipice. Ideas swirled through her mind, dormant yet powerful, but she steeled herself against the rising tide of self-doubt. Finally, when silence fell like a weight in the room, she grasped the edge of the table, her palms sweaty, grounding herself. Hades and my last research focused on the genetic resilience of plants. I believe we should not only study adaptation techniques for varying climates but also explore the socio-economic impacts of these changes on local communities. She proposed, voice steady despite the rising beat of her heart. Eyes turned to her. For a breathless moment, she questioned every word spoken, afraid it would dissolve into ridicule. But then, she noticed a glimmer of intrigue in her colleagues' gazes, saw them exchanging nods, engaged by the depth of her suggestion. The tension in her shoulders eased slightly. That's a compelling angle, one of the senior researchers replied. We might uncover valuable data that connects our work to real-world applications. The affirmation ignited a spark within Persephone, a flicker of belonging she had long sought in the days that followed. She became an active participant in the discussions that unfolded, her voice growing bolder, no longer just an echo in the background. Hades' supportive presence encouraged her, offering insights that merged seamlessly with her burgeoning perspectives. Each meeting, each push into unfamiliar territory was a step towards chipping away at her insecurities, revealing a stronger, more competent version of herself. But within her strides lay an undercurrent of uncertainty. As her confidence surged, the specter of her past loomed ever larger. Vivid memories of self-doubt bore into her psyche. Could she sustain this newfound confidence? Would it withstand the inevitable challenges that came with her ambition? As she prepared for a crucial presentation before a panel of experts, doubt clawed at her resolve again like a feral beast, the question echoing in her mind. What if this transformation was merely a facade, a fleeting moment poised to crash down under scrutiny? The day of reckoning arrived, and as she stepped onto stage, the weight of years of insecurity settled upon her. Taking a steadying breath, Persephone reminded herself of the journey she had navigated. It was time to confront those fears, to show those present that she was more than Hades' counterpart. She was a force to be reckoned with in her own right. But just as she began her opening statement, she spotted a familiar face in the crowd, a figure from her past, someone who embodied the doubts she sought to overcome. The jolt of recognition washed over her, sending a shiver of unease down her spine. Would this encounter unravel everything she had fought to build? The familiar face in the audience loomed large, an embodiment of every fear Persephone had grappled with throughout her journey. As the murmurs of the crowd faded and the spotlight gripped her tightly, she felt her stomach drop, a furtive wave of nausea curling within her. For a moment, she couldn't remember the presentation she had meticulously rehearsed. All that filled her mind was that figure, a reminder of her former self, doubtful, fragile, and easily dismissed. She pushed her shoulders back, a physiological defiance against the creeping sensation of inadequacy. This was not a moment to retreat into the shadows. It was a climax where she demanded her place. Swallowing hard, she steadied her breath, squeezing the sides of the lectern for grounding. Breaking the silence, she began again, the words spilling forth with more fervor, laced with a mixture of terror and resolve. Today, I want to explore not just the biological adaptability of plants, but how we can intertwine those findings with broader societal impacts. The steadiness of her voice surprised even her, but between her conviction and the subject matter loomed the specter of her past judgments. Each time she glanced at the audience, her anxiety surged, her mind racing with memories of being silenced or ridiculed. The weight of expectation pressed heavily upon her when, out of the corner of her eye, she caught the familiar figure nodding, an unexpected expression of support flickering. This was not merely a panel of experts before her. They were potential allies that could shape her career moving forward. Realizing this, Persephone steadied her gaze and leaned into the moment, letting her passion draw her eye in as she continued her presentation. Ideas flowed more freely, transforming her initial trepidation into a cascade of insight. Imagine harnessing the genetic resilience of crops in partnership with local communities, equipping them with tools to face climate shifts while using these changes as opportunities for sustainable development. The audience shifted, engaged, and thoughtful. Feedback from her peers and the warm nod of acknowledgement from the senior researcher renewed her vigor. She sensed the passions of her colleagues igniting, and enthusiasm became contagious. Even the familiar face, once perceived as a barrier, now appeared as a challenge she could confront. When she concluded, a tide of applause washed over her like a balm, dispelling the tightening knots of anxiety. Persephone felt the exhilaration of achievement surge through her. She had not only projected competence, she had woven her narrative into a tapestry worthy of their attention. In that brief moment, she understood what she had always overlooked. Confidence was rooted in authenticity, not merely in external validation. Yet, as she stepped down from the stage, the familiarity of her past still lingered in the air. The figure in the audience remained, a reminder of the journey still to be traveled. What would happen when she confronted this past head-on? Would it enhance her growth or threaten to unravel her entire transformation? As whispers of her success cascaded around her, Persephone faced the unsettling truth that her battle was only just beginning. Each step forward seemed a promise, yet shadows of old doubts still clung to her heels. She could have retreated into the comfort of her newfound acclaim, but instead, she sought clarity. Drawing on newfound resolve, she turned to seek out that familiar face. It was time to confront the past and uncover the truths that shaped her doubts. Would she emerge more empowered, or would it expose the cracks in her rejuvenated identity? The stakes had risen as Persephone prepared to face the confrontation that could either solidify her newfound identity or pull her back into a vortex of insecurity. The next chapter in her journey awaited, fraught with the potential for profound revelations and the uncertainty of what lay ahead. Persephone moved through the throng of congratulatory colleagues, their faces a blur as she honed in on the one she needed to address. The familiar figure still sat, a silent sentinel amidst the chatter. Its presence was a contradiction. There was an air of both threat and familiarity that sent a shiver racing down her spine. Memories of deeply embedded fears threatened to unearth themselves, cascading through her thoughts like turbulent waves. Forcing her limbs to cooperate, she took a deep breath that felt both empowering and constraining. As she approached, she grappled with a swirl of emotions: loathing, curiosity, longing, all stemming from the history she shared with the person seated quietly. Today was supposed to herald a new beginning, the solidification of her achievements. Yet here she was, confronting the very roots that had once tethered her to self-doubt. "Mark," she steadied her voice as she finally reached him. "Can we talk?" He looked up, eyebrows arched in surprise, as though he had been waiting for this moment. The acceptance of an invitation to a duel of sorts, one she had prepared for but never quite envisioned confronting head-on. "Sure, Persephone. Congratulations on your presentation. I've never seen you so confident," he replied, a poker face disguised under layers of tone. "Don't patronize me," she countered, her directness slicing through any pretense. "We both know this isn't just about my presentation." This time we addressed what has been left unsaid. His eyes flickered, recognition rippling through them, acknowledging both the magnitude of the moment and the power dynamics they had navigated for years. Feeling an unspecified tension, she realized that the pivotal shift lay not just in her words, but in her positioning this time. She was not the frightened girl yearning for approval, but an empowered woman claiming her narrative. "I didn't intend to offend," he replied softly, a semblance of sincerity emerging. "But I can't help thinking our past has shaped you in ways that what?" She interjected, her pulse quickening as innate defiance brewed. "That held me back? That made me question my value?" "Yes, it did. But it no longer defines me." A silence enveloped them, velvety and thick. It demanded attention, a pause that vibrated with the unspoken realities between them: the hurt, the misunderstandings, the moments he dismissed her as a fledgling in her field. She fought against the urge to backpedal, instead fostering a sense of ownership over her narrative. "Then why are you here to relive the past?" He took a step forward, an attempt to bridge the distance. "To blame? To settle scores?" "No," she answered, her core solidifying with each pulse of resoluteness. "I'm here to reclaim my story. I acknowledge the past, but it will not hold sway over my present. I refuse to let it shatter my future." His expression shifted. She could see him process her words, weighing them as if they were pieces of a complex puzzle he hadn't quite managed to solve. "Is that really how you feel?" he asked, his voice softening. "Because, for me, there is still much to unravel." "Then let us unravel this together," she proposed. Even speaking the words ignited something within her, a flicker of hope intertwined with the thrill of potential conflict. "But it requires honesty from both of us. No masks." No pretenses. Persephone felt a wave of vulnerability wash over her. This confrontation was a potency ready to unfold, offering pathways for growth. Yet in that very sincerity lingered a threat of imminent collapse could they dismantle the barriers without losing the pieces altogether. As she studied him, the tension between them palpable, she pondered what revelations lay ahead. Confrontation heralded clarity and could lead to the understanding she sought, but it could also open doors to hurtful truths she was not yet prepared to face. Before either could speak again, a figure stepped into their orbit, breaking the charged atmosphere. A new voice, laden with authority, demanded attention. Persephone, we need to discuss your findings further. Your work has implications beyond what we initially considered. As she turned away, she could feel Mark's gaze still resting on her, an unspoken question hanging silently in the air. The confrontation remained unfulfilled. The battle was far from over. Persephone's momentum surged again. What truths lay hidden in this newfound recognition, and how would they propel her toward her ultimate growth? A path forward now beckoned, fragmented yet promising a duality hinting at the uncomfortable intersections of professional ambition and personal resolution. Each step would either solidify her renewed identity or threaten to tear it down. What lay on the horizon? When the intricate dance of past and present collided head-on. The stage was set, but clarity remained elusive, prompting only more questions than answers. Persephone sought to break the silence anew. Unsure of what would emerge next, could this encounter transform them both beyond recognition? As the authoritative voice pulled Persephone back into the present, a palpable sense of urgency coursed through her. She forced herself to push aside thoughts of Mark, recognizing that the meeting ahead held just as much potential for growth, albeit of a different kind. Her heart raced, not with fear but with anticipation. Every interaction, every word exchanged could serve as a stepping stone toward true transformation. "Let us go," she said, guiding the person who interrupted toward a quieter corner of the venue. As she settled into the discussion, the remnants of her encounter with Mark lingered at the back of her mind like an unfinished puzzle, demanding resolution. "Your research on sustainable practices is remarkable," praised the representative from the Institute, a sense of reverence in their tone. "The implications could change the sector drastically. We want to propel this forward, perhaps even secure funding for a larger project." Persephone nodded, feeling a swell of pride at the acknowledgement. "I believe there's a significant opportunity to integrate new technologies with traditional methods. They aren't mutually exclusive," she articulated, her demeanor shifting naturally into that of an assertive advocate for her work. As they moved deeper into dialogue, she strategically laid out her findings, leading her audience through a web of possibilities. The more fervently she spoke, the more her confidence bloomed. This was the clarity she had sought, but with the exhilaration also came the realization that the foundation of her success rested on past struggles. "You've truly found your voice," the representative noted, their eyes shimmering with enthusiasm. "Imagine what a platform could do for you: media coverage, conferences. You'd be in the spotlight, shaping the discourse nationally. But tell me, are you prepared for such visibility?" The question nudged at her insecurities. The shadows of doubt she thought had been banished. Could she endure the scrutiny that came with the spotlight? Her mind raced, teetering between validation and vulnerability. "I am," she replied, injecting conviction into each syllable. "But it's not just about the audience or recognition. This work matters to me deeply. It's about initiating genuine change, and I refuse to be sidetracked by old fears." Her resolve flowed from an unexpected source. The confrontation with Mark had steeled her for this very moment. She realized how much of her professional persona had been crafted in the wake of her past, shaping her resilience when others demanded she shrink. Facing Mark had fortified something within her. She was learning to own her capabilities and relinquish the grip of her anxieties as they wrapped the discussion. The representative urged her to explore their proposal further. "I need your commitment, Persephone. This is a chance to not only elevate your career but to advocate for changes that can significantly impact others. Are you ready to make that leap?" The magnitude of this opportunity hung in the air, a promise of transformation that echoed against the backdrop of her earlier confrontation. Yes, she was ready. But now, Something within her urged her to take stock of what she truly desired, not just professionally, but personally. Stepping away into a quiet alcove, she gazed out at the crowd swirling before her. The thrill of anticipation mingled with her nagging uncertainties about Mark and their unresolved issues. She could not neglect that potential conflict. It loomed like a storm cloud on her horizon. Yet another question curdled in her thoughts. Who was she without the shadows of those past experiences? Was she ready to redefine her identity in personal as well as professional spheres? With purposeful clarity, Persephone resolved to explore not just the new opportunities ahead, but to confront and disassemble the pieces of herself still dictated by Mark's perception. She would not merely step into the spotlight. She would illuminate every corner of her vision as she turned back toward the throng, ready to engage with newfound vigor. A familiar face caught her attention. Mark, his gaze piercing through the crowd. Would they find resolution together, or had the time come for her to forge ahead alone, reshaping possibilities from fragments of both dreams and memories? The air thickened with possibilities, the questions pulled taut, as she ventured forth to confront the paths diverging before her. What transformations awaited her on this winding road, and would she muster the strength to embrace them all? Persephone inhaled deeply, steadying herself as she stepped back into the vibrant cacophony of conversation. Mark's presence nagged at her thoughts like a persistent echo, but she was determined not to let it overshadow the excitement of the potential opportunity unfolding before her. The representative's praise still buzzed in her ears, coaxing her from hesitation into action. The crowd swirled with energy, and she merged into it, her senses heightened by anticipation. Underneath, a current of self-doubt still thrummed, but she recognized it now as a powerful contrast. Her growth was not merely about overcoming. It was about evolving into someone far more resilient than she had been. Each interaction she initiated, each idea she articulated, was a building block for both her professional ambitions and personal evolution. Spotting another group of researchers congregating around a display of innovative products, she approached. She had stumbled through similar scenes before, feeling like an outsider in her own field. But today was different. As she engaged with the group, sharing insights about her research, the shift was palpable. She was not just a participant, she was a thought leader, and her enthusiasm sparked interest among them. She felt the power of her words solidify belief in her vision for sustainable practices. Have you ever thought about the role of community involvement in scaling these solutions? A colleague asked, their brow furrowing in genuine interest. Absolutely, she replied, her voice firm. Without grassroots advocacy, many innovations risk being sidelined. It's about integrating what's technologically feasible with what communities are actually willing to implement. They nodded, some scribbling notes inspired by her perspective. The interaction fed her thirst for recognition, not merely as an expert but as a contributor capable of sparking transformative change. But with that recognition came the shadow of her past, specifically Mark. With resolution, she pushed the lingering thoughts of him aside. She would not allow their history to color her present engagements. Instead, she needed to focus on this emerging identity, a woman unapologetically passionate and skilled, with a vision that could ripple across the sector. Yet, just as she felt the support around her firming up her determination, Mark stepped forward, his familiar aura cutting through her concentration. The complicated blend of emotions rose within her. Here he was, encapsulating her history, both a comfort and a shadow. Their eyes met, and the world around her seemed to freeze momentarily. "Can we talk?" he asked, his tone neutral but edged with something softer. Persephone hesitated. Part of her screamed to retreat, reclaim her narrative without the weight of their shared past. Yet another part recognized that avoidance wasn't the answer. It was time to confront this once and for all, not in anger but in clarity. "Yes," she replied, feeling the weight of her decision. This engagement was critical to both her personal and professional development. They stepped away into a quieter corner, distant enough from the crowd but still under the watchful gaze of onlookers. A potent mixture of old scars and new resolve hung in the air between them. "I've missed you," Mark started, a vulnerability lacing his words. "And I had some time to think about everything." Persephone met his gaze, her heart pounding not with longing but with the appreciation of what she had achieved alone. "I've been missing you too, but things can't go back to how they were," she asserted, her voice steady. Abruptly, the conversation morphed into a dialogue about their individual journeys, exposing the transformations they had undergone in unexpected ways. Every reflection became a shard of insight, peeling back layers of misunderstanding as echoes of their conversation flowed back and forth. She began registering how deeply their shared experiences shaped their identities, even if she had carved her path in splendid isolation. What she had not anticipated was that Mark had also undertaken a journey of his own, one fraught with his own lessons and self-discovery. Through brief moments of vulnerability, they exchanged newfound hope and assurances that neither would attempt to mold the other. Instead, they spoke of personal growth, aspirations, and the reality of what their relationship had been learning catalysts for each other. Yet, as the conversation took shape, an unsettling question nagged her. Was lingering affection a clarity she should embrace, or was it an obstacle to her newfound self-definition? The tension built around them, wrapping their dialogue in a mix of understanding and uncertainty. Would this encounter solidify their bond, or was it merely a bridge to a new beginning, one that she could travel alone? The questions loomed large, as each word exchanged opened new dimensions of possibility. Drawing in a deep breath, filled with the weight of her choices, she prepared for the next step. Would they be able to harness this moment for genuine reconciliation? Or was it time for her to assert further boundaries and possibilities in her own life? The air between them hummed with unsaid words and unresolved emotions. Persephone felt the weight of her own convictions pressing down as she wrestled with the need for clarity. Mark's eyes, filled with remnants of their history, held hers captive. They had so much to unpack, yet the stakes felt higher than ever. "I want you to know I've changed," he said, almost imploringly. "I've been working on myself, and I hope you can see that." Persephone's brow furrowed slightly as she considered his words. Change an alluring promise, but one layered with ambiguity. How could she trust that what he spoke was authentic? The past was a profound teacher, and she'd be remiss to ignore it. "Change is important," she replied carefully. "But it's not just about words. It's about actions and accountability, and I need to know that you understand that." His expression shifted, a flicker of realization crossing his face, but he nodded, conceding her point. "I get it," he said, the resolve in his voice deepening. "I'm willing to show you, to prove that I'm different. But you need to give me that chance. A chance we never really had." His candidness shook her, unraveling the carefully woven tapestry of her newfound confidence. She realized she had built walls of defense against vulnerability, and they now felt precariously close to crumbling. However, she also understood that vulnerability could lead to growth, both personally and professionally. Would embracing this moment propel her to the next stage of her evolution, or drown her in old patterns? Silence settled in, heavy yet pregnant with possibility. She inhaled slowly, grounding herself. "I'm not sure what a second chance would look like, Mark. I've been doing this on my own for a long time, claiming my identity. And I'd rather not lose that." "I'm not asking you to lose it," he replied, frustration edging his voice. "I'm asking to be a part of it, to support you if you'll let me." His earnestness stung at her defenses, but it stirred something deeper, a longing to share her successes with someone who might understand the sacrifices she had made. Could they exist together, weaving a new narrative without losing their individual identities? A sudden weight pressed down upon her thoughts. The implications of an old relationship fumbling with her growth felt daunting. She had always prioritized her progress and her ambition to make a mark in her field. Would engaging with Mark hamper that momentum or enhance it? Persephone glanced away, eyes roving over the crowd. As the laughter and chatter drifted toward her, she heard echoes of the conversations she'd been part of. The energy among her peers invigorated her, grounding her in the value she had built independently. Yet, there lingered a question that held her captive. Was working through this with Mark a step toward personal enlightenment, or was it simply a fool's errand? "I want to think about it," she finally said, weighing her words carefully. "I need to figure out what this means for me, for us. In the meantime, let us Let us keep this dialogue open. Mark's expression softened, showing a blend of disappointment and admiration. That's more than what I expected. Thank you. As they lingered in that charged moment, a renewed sense of purpose began to bloom within her. She understood that true transformation often required navigating discomfort. This was a critical crossroad, and how she chose to move forward could redefine her next steps. But beyond the personal upheaval loomed another realization. Her decisions had the power to shape the trajectory of her career as well, intertwining her fate with a past intertwined with ambition and growth. How they navigated their past would reflect the future she envisioned for herself professionally. With tension humming between them, Persephone felt the delicate balance of past and present, wonder and apprehension, lodging itself firmly in her thoughts. She knew she stood at the cusp of something transformative, an intersection where her professional aspirations met her personal challenges. What began as an opportunity for connection could morph into a journey of deeper insight, if only she could embrace the uncertainty as they stepped back into the crowd. Both momentarily altered and poised at the brink of a new beginning, her phone buzzed in her pocket. An incoming call from a mentor she adored, one who always challenged her assumptions. A twist of fate, or a nudge toward another crossroads? Heart racing, she glanced at Mark before answering, her mind racing with anticipation and dread. What new direction would this call take her, and how would it intertwine with the one she'd just unearthed with Mark? Persephone stood amid the mingling crowd, the weight of her choices pressing against her like the heavy scent of flowers in the air. She had traversed the depths of self-doubt and emerged into the light of newfound confidence. But the conversation with Mark lingered like an unresolved chord in her heart. Gathering her thoughts, she answered the call, feeling a surge of anticipation swell inside her. Persephone! Her mentor's voice rang out, buoyant and reassuring. I've been following your latest work. The presentation was outstanding, even groundbreaking. It's high time you secured your place in this field. What's next for you? The question resonated deeply. It provided an immediate clarity, reminding her of the ambitious vision that had ignited her journey in the first place. Reflecting on her research and the direction she wished to pursue, a focus on integrated community sustainable practices, she responded with deliberate intent. I'm ready to dive deeper into this work. I see not just opportunities for research, but platforms for advocacy. There's more to be done than just science. I want my findings to affect change where it matters most. I believe in you, Persephone. This passion is contagious, and your insights are invaluable. Consider this your moment to shine. I'd recommend reaching out to some influential figures in the field to secure funding and support. As the call wrapped up, that familiar flame of determination sparked within her chest, reigniting the purpose she had almost forgotten while grappling with the distractions of her past. She could feel her trajectory shifting, propelling forward with an urgency that demanded her full attention. In redefining her personal narrative, she could simultaneously elevate her career. Confidence surged as she began approaching different groups, articulating her research focuses and advocating for its significance. Her voice carried weight now, met with respect and curiosity. The shadows of her previous hesitations became mere echoes as each conversation unveiled new prospects for collaboration, support, and elevation of her work. With each connection made, she saw a pathway emerging that was no longer dictated by her past but forged by her aspirations. Yet, late in the evening, as the discussions wound down, she found herself face to face with Mark again. The earlier conversation had unearthed something raw between them, an intimacy that was both comforting and challenging. "Can we take a walk?" he asked, his voice earnest yet cautious. "Sure," Persephone replied, her resolve unwavering. They stepped into a quieter space where the clamor of the event faded into a distant hum. About earlier, he began, hesitating slightly, "I appreciate your openness. I want to be someone who supports your growth and not a hindrance." She met his gaze, the depth of emotion reflected in his eyes grounding her thoughts. "I want that too, but I need you to understand I'm not the same person I was before. The insecurities that once defined me are gone. I'm evolving on my own, and I won't compromise that progress anymore." His expression shifted and understanding dawned. resonating with the reality of their separate paths. I admire how far you've come, and I won't stand in the way of your journey. With that, the air between them lightened, fraught with possibility rather than tension. She could sense the shift. Though their past did not vanish, it was no longer a chain that bound her. Instead, it was a foundation upon which she could build. I need to keep moving forward, Persephone said, feeling an unexpected sense of liberation. But I'd like to keep the door open for friendship, if that works for you. Of course, he replied, a genuine smile breaking through. Let us support each other as we grow. Their conversation concluded with mutual respect and acknowledgement, a beautiful pairing of their narratives no longer clouded by the shadows of their shared pasts. She had conquered the darker echoes and emerged into an empowered version of herself. As she stepped back into the hub of lively conversations, Persephone felt a newfound sense of belonging. By reclaiming her voice and navigating her truth, she had transformed her journey into an avenue illuminated by authenticity. Her research was set to make real impacts within the sector, and mark a facet of her history had become a benchmark for how far she had come. She had achieved more than she ever imagined possible, embracing her identity as a capable woman poised to influence change. With a solid foundation beneath her and clarity about her aspirations, Persephone looked ahead with solid confidence. Embracing her future, she envisioned stepping into mainstream spheres, advocating for sustainable practices that bridged science and community. This journey of self-realization had equipped her with unwavering resolve and newfound competence. She was no longer merely a shadow of her past, but a beacon of potential, ready to dive into the new horizons awaiting her. Persephone had not only achieved her goals, she had transformed her entire narrative, establishing her position confidently in her domain. Now was the time for others to witness this growth, and she was more than ready. You need to subscribe now to ensure you don't miss any of the next exclusive emotional stories that redefine personal journeys. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and boost these transformative narratives. Comment your thoughts and theories about Persephone's remarkable journey, and fervently share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this inspiring conclusion. Don't wait even one more second to spread the motivation.